Good morning. Welcome back, everybody. It's another day in paradise. It is Monday, March 20th. New week ahead of us. So it's time to get this party started. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you all had a great weekend. I was looking at the charts last night. Sent out my analysis to the group, and there seems to be some decent setups. A lot of activity going on. Activity going on this week, though, right? I mean, we have the bank situation, which I'm going to get into. We have the Fed Wednesday. We have Trump apparently getting arrested Tuesday. So, but whatever. We'll talk about that stuff day to day. However, looking at today, we have a yen bank holiday. So if you are trading pound yen or anything involving the yen, do keep in mind that there is going to be less volume and it's going to be more heavily weighted towards whatever other currency is against the yen. So in this case, pound yen, it's going to be more based off of pound news and pound volume because there is a yen holiday. That's the only thing today. So today's pretty clean. Surprise, surprise. We actually have a clean day ahead of us. So with that being said, let's move on into the charts and see what's going on. And I do want to talk about some kind of change in fundamentals. Not really change in fundamentals, but a continuation in fundamentals that happened over the weekend. So we talked about last week how Credit Suisse was going bankrupt and going under, right? They had like $600 billion worth of assets. And you had the Swiss National Bank extend them liquidity, right? They gave them some money for liquidity. But now we're seeing that UBS is actually buying them. It's buying them out, but they're really bailing them out. So we're seeing a lot more activity and concerns in the bankruptcy field out there. And so what you're now seeing is the Fed is now opening daily dollar swap lines. And so they're now giving liquidity out to international banks directly from the Fed to help save this banking crisis. Because look, the deal is if the Fed can't contain the regional bank collapse here, then there's going to be another Great Depression. I mean, if everybody loses confidence in the banking system, there's going to be another depression, and it's going to lead to a spiral down of everything, right? So small and medium banks, they account for 50% of U.S. commercial and industrial lending, 60% of residential real estate lending, 80% of commercial real estate lending, and 45% of consumer lending. So there is, if we lose control of the regional bank crisis, then we're in big trouble. So now what we're seeing is the Fed's opening the daily dollar swap lines. They're going to potentially now start cutting rates. In addition to that, there's a lot of QE out there. They're going to start pivoting. And what you're going to start seeing is the Fed just accepting inflation. You want to see them start saving the banks, start potentially cutting rates. And you're seeing an entire change in market fundamentals going forward. But, obviously we have to see the whole chain of events happen. But this is not just banks being bought out and bailed out and stuff. This is a whole chain of events that could happen. So a lot of volatility to potentially come into play, which will then lead into the dollar, which is what I'm going to talk about now. The dollar being very, very weak potentially, and then gold, which is why you're seeing gold just being extremely strong. So definitely keep in mind those new fundamental events, because remember, we talk about what moves the markets moving forward. What fundamentals and news do you have to pay attention to? Now it's all about banking situations. Do you see anything about the banks? Because that's going to cause the movement and volatility in the markets right now. So looking at the dollar, now that that's said and done. What's going on, Nis? Good morning. I'm doing well. I appreciate it. I hope you're doing well. Now looking at the Dixie here, looking at the weekly chart. Bearish engulfing last week. rejecting this previous area of resistance at 105.5. And so now it seems that we are continuing to the downside, potentially breaking last week's wick. But we are going to run into a little bit of support here. We talked about this 103.5. Looking at the daily chart, this is the area. This is really the line in the sand for the dollar. If it breaks through this 103.5, this 103 area, then it's going to be in for a nice downward spiral, because this is a higher time frame level of support here. So we're now starting to see we broke through these lows. We're creating lower highs. So the dollar is now in a potential bearish active sequence. There is a lot of support here. But once we do break through it and get some fundamentals continue to come out, then we're going to start seeing a push to the downside. So with that, we'll see what happens, because we might start. So remember, we talked about how the dollar, you can't really use it as a relationship trade right now, because with the situation going on with fundamentals, it's going to push the dollar weak. It's going to push gold strong. So as people are flocking to safety, the safety trade is going to be gold. And so what you're going to see is you're going to see the equities, the stock market, dump, and you're going to see the dollar dump. So typically you use the dollar as a relationship towards the equities, like, oh, dollar's going up, stock market's going down, vice versa. However, dollar's going to go down, stock market's going to go down. So we got to really now focus on what are the rates doing, what's gold doing, and then what is what's the fundamentals in the situation with the banks, right? So the dollar potentially looking weak. The equities, so looking at US30 here, US30 weekly chart had this nice rejection sitting at 34,500, creating these lower highs, broke through this area of support at 32,500, closed pretty strongly bearish 2 weeks ago. Last week we closed bearish, but more or less an indecision candle. And so what I'd like to see is, based off the daily chart, we're still creating this downward price action, these lower highs. I want to see a retest of this 38.2% retracement of this breakdown point here. And then we can see then a pushback down into this 30,400 pivot point. So overall, I'm looking for sells in equities, especially given the situation right now in the regional bank crisis, or the collapse. But as for today's price action, we could potentially look for longs. I mean, if we can get, I want to ultimately see shorts at a higher price. And right now, you got to play what price action is giving you. And it's giving us this consolidation right here. This consolidation for the last week and a half. And so what you can expect now is, okay, where was the previous area of support that we had in this area? Well, it was right here, right? This is the area that we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a ton of support here. So what you could potentially look for is longs on US30 today for a pushback up towards these highs. Had a pretty strong move from this overnight session since the London Open. It was a pretty strong move, but I wouldn't want to see a break below the support. So I'd want to see probably some basing action, pull back towards VWAP, kind of base around here for a little bit, and then we can get going. But again, I'm not trading equities until around 9 o'clock, 8:45, something in that area. So this is just an idea. We'll have to see what happens as we get closer to NYSE Open. Looking at US 500, the S&P. Let's decide on which indice we want to trade today. S&P 500 is actually already at that retest point. So daily doesn't seem like it has much range to it. We have the point of control sitting just north of price action. 4-hour chart had this big rejection candlestick in the last 4 hours, creating this higher low structure. So buys on US 500 look decent. Not as much range because we already are at this retest point here. Maybe you can expect this retest point to come into play. So looking at the 30-minute, I'd want to see price no lower than this 3,900. So again, a potential hangout here, and then we get going to these highs. However, I do think US30 has better potential today, so I'm going to be trading US30. Looking at gold. Gold is just rocking and rolling here. However, I talked about it with my guys over the weekend. I'm not looking for buys on gold because it's just not smart to buy into this all-time high, right? It just doesn't make sense to me. So what I'm going to look for is sells at this potential resistance point. You're already seeing that this is a pretty strong daily resistance here. And now we're running into, that's where the daily closed Friday. And today, kind of what I expected would happen is you had this run through these highs, run through this resistance, and then puked back down, right? And so looking at the 1 hour chart, we're seeing some divergence here. Broke through highs, weaker push on the RSI, and so we had this breakthrough, bearish push back to the downside. Now what I want to see is what it's doing now, a retest of these highs that we just broke, a retest around VWAP, and then I'll look for sells for a pushback down towards the overnight lows. So this is going to be my idea for gold today. It'll be around a 3-to-1 risk reward. But overall, I think we can get a higher time frame pullback and retest some of Friday's move. If not the whole move, maybe 50% of it. So you could be in store for a pretty decent push to the downside. And I'm not going to get greedy and look for the whole thing, but I will look for maybe a push down towards these lows, given that we're seeing this nice liquidity grab and we're seeing this nice rejection. So somewhere in this area is where I'll look for sells. Oil actually has a decent range. So looking at the daily chart, this area I have marked off. So first off, this purple line, the 66.58. Really strong pivot point back in 2019. That was this pivot point here with a lot of volume to it. That was its pivot point in 2021. A lot of resistance here in 2021 as well. Support. Very strong area of rejection, right? This 66.58. We're also running into an area that we've had a lot of support, a lot of rejection as well. This whole entire zone from 62 to 65. And so looking at current price action, we're now potentially rejecting the 66.58 here. We've seen a lot of support there, but we're now potentially rejecting this area. This is zone of 64. So higher time frames are in a strong area where I'm just not going to sell. I'm not considering selling at all. It's just too much of a rejection area. So what I'm going to look at is longs. If we can get back above 66.58. I don't want to buy anywhere down here because the problem is if you buy down here, then you're potentially running into this resistance here, which is that very strong pivot point. Even on the even when price comes from the downside, it rejects. So not much of a range to buy into that. So what I'd rather see is price close back above, get a retest, and then we'll look for longs to fill some of this move from Friday. So oil longs above 66.58. I'll set an alert, and then we'll wait for some price action to form above it. Actually, I meant to set an alert for gold as well. Yeah. Then looking at pound yen today. So I'm actually looking for, and let me show you what longs, and this is why. So daily chart, running into a lot of exhaustion here. Buyers are stepping in. You're seeing sellers get eaten up in here. We're running into an area where we've seen this exhaustion and rejection prior. 4-hour chart, you could see that as well. We're running into an area we've rejected before, but we do have this resistance at 162. So you have resistance here, support here. So we're now in this range that we're trading. However, I think it's pretty clean. It's not too choppy. You get these nice moves. You get these nice moves. And so I'm looking to see if we can get a nice move again. If you look at price action back from Thursday, we had this push to the downside, this bullish engulfing, retest, and then rally, right? Same as today, push to the downside, bullish engulfing, bearish retest, and so now I want to see if we get this rally to the upside. Looking very, very, very similar. Same area of price as well. So if we can get a retest of this zone right in here, then I will look for longs for a push back up towards the point of control and these prior highs of the overnight session of Asian session. So this would be my idea on pound yen. I mean, trying to sell into all this rejection doesn't make any sense. And there's actually pretty clean price action to the upside. Pound USD. Looking at the weekly chart. Bullish and very, very strong bullish candlestick last week, pushing through all of this exhaustion. If we do see a weak dollar, which is what I'm anticipating, we will see a strong pound USD. So I want to see if we can get this continuation. Clean, swift movement back up towards these prior highs back in January. A daily chart broke through this resistance, came back to retest, and now we're pushing higher. Now what we have to look for is a continuation through this potential pivot point here that we're now potentially breaking through. If we can break through this pivot point here, we have pretty clean price action to the upside. Looking at the 4-hour chart, we have had put in these lower highs back from January. We had this rejection. Now we broke through, and we broke through, had a retest, bullish engulfing, wick retest, and now we're pushing higher. So I'd expect pound USD to push to the upside. Nice 1-hour bullish engulfing, currently retesting this breakout for then a potential continuation to the upside. So longs actually look pretty decent here. I don't really like the stops, so what I'm potentially considering is this 15-minute chart. If we can start breaking through these highs, pushing bullish, I'll put my stop below this wick, anticipating continued bullish momentum now that we're breaking through these highs, and then I'll look for a run to fill this wick here, which should be right up in this range. So this is gonna be my idea for pound USD today. It'll look something like this. So we're looking right around a 3-to-1 on pound USD as well. So see what happens. Just add my alert as we start breaking these highs. And that's everything I'm looking at today. I'm going back to the basics on what I'm good at, what I'm trading. I don't want to do too much. I will spread myself too thin. So now we're back to business with trading the volatile pairs, the good shit. So that's gonna be it for me today. So it should be a solid trading day. Would hop off on Zoom with my guys now. Remember, if you're trying to trade live with us every Monday to Thursday in the morning, VantTradingForex.com. Hope to see you there. Otherwise, I'll see you back on YouTube tomorrow morning. Have a good rest of your day, guys, and safe trading.